All right. Hello, people of Facebook. Hope you're having a good night. We are live for our War of the Spark preview stream. I am joined by the one and only Scott Turner. There he is. I'm Marshall Simpson. We will be your magic aficionados this evening. How exciting is that?
It's quite exciting. I'm really quite excited.
Quite exciting. Scott, I don't know if many people out there know who you are. Do you want to take just a moment to kind of say why you're qualified to have input into Magic the Gathering, War of the Spark, anything like that?
Yes, I think that's a great idea. Hello, my name is Scott Turner. Those of you on the interwebs might know me as Turner512. And I am qualified to be talking about constructed Magic the Gathering cards this War of the Spark preview season because I have, on numerous occasions, top-aided an F&M. So.
Very good. Hey, you know what? I've only done that like once, so.
You've only top-aided one F&M? I know you've done better than that, Marshall. Don't sell yourself short.
Scott, now here's what I'll say about Scott before we jump right into this. I have top-aided a number of PPTQs, for those who don't know, it's preliminary Pro Tour qualifiers. Been to the finals a couple of times with those bad boys. I've even done more of that than Scott, I believe. I would have to check the numbers. But what Scott has that I do not have is that Scott has won a PPTQ.
First PPTQ dub, baby.
He got that dub, went to an RPTQ. When was that? How long ago was that?
Oh, man. It's in February, maybe?
February. Yeah, dude. So that wasn't that long ago.
No.
Me and Scott, we do our fair share of magic grinding. We did a little more back in the day, probably, but...
We're excited to be grinding again.
Yes.
So.
All right. Magically, that is.
Of course.
All right. So here we are. Let's just. I just want to kind of put this out there. And Scott, if you'll type this in the comments, I don't know if you might not have the stream up.
No, I have it up, dude. I'm ready to roll.
All right. Go ahead and just. I'll pin this comment once you post it. But go ahead and just like. Here's what I want to know. I want to know what cards people are excited about from War of the Spark. Whether it's for constructed, whether it's for commander, whether it's for eternal formats, modern, legacy, what cards are you excited about, and what cards do you hope that we cover? Because there might be some cards that you want to talk about that we haven't planned to talk about, but I will say this: we're ready to talk about 60 cards from this set. So this is we're probably gonna go pretty quick. We're probably not going to spend a whole lot of time on each card. Some we might land on and spend a little bit of time in. But we're probably most of these we're going to go through, have a few things to say, and then move from there. So I'm going to go ahead and pin that comment, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So, all right, first card. Are you ready, Scott?
Light it up.
Now we're going alphabetical order, so it's not any particular, like that's the only order. It's not based on like what we think is the best, what we think will be like most relevant. We made a list and we said here's what we want to talk about. First card, alphabetical order. Johnny the Greathearted.
Yes, the mentor of heroes is back.
That's generous.
Yes. Yes. I'm a fan of this card, Marshall. I like it.
Okay, so just quick, going through the stats you can read on the screen. 4 mana, 5 loyalty, starting off. That's a good rate. Right off the bat, good rate. Creatures you control have vigilance. That's a relevant ability. Now, +1, you gain 3 life.
In the ever-present mono burn meta, that's a good ability.
It's a fine ability. Like it's like not like if I'm playing against mono red and I spend 4 mana, take a whole turn, and I gain 3 life, I'm not feeling great.
I'll tell you that I think I've done more desperate things to gain some life against red in my life. Okay.
But all in all, +1 gain 3 life, not hot, right? Not the best ability.
It's not getting me out of bed.
But really, you're playing this card for the -2 ability, right?
Yes, sir.
This is why you're playing this card. So before we read this next card, we do need to let everyone know that War of the Spark is all about planeswalkers. If you haven't been keeping up, you probably know that if you follow Magic. War of the Spark, all about planeswalkers. We have planeswalkers at uncommon, rare, and mythic rarity levels. So Wizards has, I believe they said they promised a planeswalker in every pack. That's correct, right, Scott?
I believe so, yes.
So for limited, now this is not a limited preview. We're not spending any time on limited. We might mention limited here and there just kind of in passing. But for limited, that's really interesting. That every pack you open is going to have a planeswalker. Now,
very much so.
For this card, like if I open this card in limited, I'm really excited.
Because for sure.
The -2 ability, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each other planeswalker you control. That's a game changer, right? Like,
solid.
I mean, so all the uncommons, and we're going to cover actually a few uncommon planeswalkers tonight, do not have plus abilities. They have stagnant abilities and they have minus abilities. So, once you minus a certain amount of times, they're dead. Right? They can't do anything else. But with the Johnny, and this is why this card is on our list today, is you can actually bump up your whole planeswalker team with loyalty counters. That's what I'm excited. And giving all your creatures a +1/+1 counter is pretty good too.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet that you and I are kind of on opposite sides of the aisle when it comes to this card. I know you love your planeswalkers, so you're stoked about those loyalty counters. But for me, I've put a lot of time into that green-white Celestina token deck, baby. And I love tossing out the old March of the Multitudes, getting my counters out there. Yeah. And if you slam down in a Johnny with a wide team, wowee, boy howdy, gonna get you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, for real. This is real. I mean, I think for constructed, this is what gets me excited. You have a mythic planeswalker in this set. They all have ultimate abilities, I believe. Maybe not every one of them, but most of them have an ultimate ability, which is like a big minus, and you get some great effect. And that's traditionally what we've seen in planeswalkers in other sets. And so you can -2 a Johnny, put counters on all of their planeswalkers, and you just get to that ultimate that much quicker, right? So
very true.
And that's really the exciting factor. It's like ramp for planeswalkers. Not just that you're ramping to play them, but you're like ramping to that ultimate. And so I think if you can somehow figure out the best way to use this -2 ability, that's what's probably going to put that planeswalker deck on the map. There's a few other cards we're going to talk about that put that planeswalker deck in a possibly good position, but I think that's one we want to start with. So.
And I'm saying that this card is an oldie goldie. You just put it in a deck that already exists. Green-white tokens, go to town. Oh yeah, that's my take.
You know what? That's actually probably just better.
It might be. I'm not saying.
Might be. All right. So ready for the next card?
Let's move on.
Okay. Next card. Ingress Rampage. So this one, this is an uncommon. Red and a black to cast sorcery, choose one. Target player sacrifices an artifact. Target player sacrifices a creature. Target player sacrifices a planeswalker. I don't think we actually talked for 1 second about this card when we were preparing for this stream.
No.
I don't know if you would have added it to the list. I know I put it on the list. I wanted to talk about it. So what do you think about this card? What's your first impressions of this?
My first impression is I don't know. I can definitely see a constructed playability though. I definitely like it in the sideboard. Seeing that it edicts artifacts and creatures, that can be very useful in a lot of utility situations against certain decks. But knowing that this is a planeswalker format coming up, the fact that you can target player, sacrifice a planeswalker, that excites me. That's a quality removal spell right there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be relevant. I don't know, since it is all sacrifice, I don't know how good this is going to be. Planeswalker, you're probably going to hit one. You could have more than one Planeswalker, like you were saying. Like, you could have more than one, but I still don't know if you're going to have a Planeswalker army. So I still think it's going to be, most of the time they're going to have one or less Planeswalkers in play.
Yeah, and that's very much my mindset. As much as I'd like for there to be a sweet mid-range, go big, go wide Planeswalker deck. I'm expecting one, two at the absolute most Planeswalkers to be on the board in Constructed.
Yeah. I want to be proven wrong, though.
For sure. I'd love to see something different.
We are going to talk about what we think could be a very real artifact deck to come out.
Oh, yes.
And so if there is an artifact deck that plays a lot of artifacts, this first line, to me, gets less impressive against that deck. Because they're just going to sacrifice the ones that don't matter. But anyway, I just thought that card was really interesting, really versatile. You may see it more in the sideboard than in the main boards, but definitely worth talking about. All right, ready for the next one? Or you got more?
Yeah, we can move on. But to answer Eric's question in the comments real quick, Eric, I don't expect to see a ton of heavy Planeswalker decks. I could be wrong, but I expect your average Constructed Standard deck to be playing 1, 2, and if they're really going crazy, 3 or 4, quantity-wise.
Mm-hmm. And if you're me, like week 1 on Arena, you're going to be dropping a whole bunch of Planeswalkers in the deck.
Yeah, the five color 80 Planeswalker standard deck. I know you'll play it.
We'll get there. We're going to talk about that later. All right. Next card. This one's for you, Scott.
Yes. The Boss Sloth.
Do you know how to actually say that real name there?
I don't want to try. I'd rather call it the Boss Sloth.
Boss Sloth or Arboreal Grazer.
That's a good try.
Boss Sloth. That's what we'll call it. So, why are we talking about a 0/3 for 1 mana with reach? It's not for any of those things. Well, maybe the 1 mana. Maybe the 0/3. But really, it's all about that little line of text right there that says, when Boss Sloth enters the battlefield, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped.
Yeah, and I'll admit, I'm coming down off my Boss Sloth high horse. I was kind of hoping that this would be the next Elvish Mystic in Standard. And I think that I might have gone a little too far in my earlier assumption.
Oh, no.
When it comes to this card. Yeah, but I still really like it. I still think that for 1 mana, especially with cards like Growth Spiral in the format, with Nexus decks running around, the bane of my existence, I think that this is a card that ramps you up to that upper echelon really fast, but also retains a form of hexproof on your Llanowar Elves. Where Llanowar Elves can be bolted, this is a land that you get on the battlefield.
Yes, and that's the trade-off, right? Like, you are... Llanowar Elves, you know what you get. You get a 1/1, taps for green. This one, obviously, is not an attacker. I mean, it doesn't have defender, but you're not getting anywhere as it is with 0 power. But, you get that more permanent ramp, which I think is exciting. Here's the question. Are you going to put them both in the same deck? Are you going to run 4 Llanowar Elves and 4 Boss Sloths? Throw them together. What are you doing?
I think it's probably deck dependent. If there's a real ramp deck out there, it might want to play 8, all 8 copies. But I expect decks that are more interested in kind of your Simic Nexus deck. I expect that to be a little more interested in the Sloth, where probably your mid-range decks might just be more interested in getting your standard Llanowar Elves. However, I have to say that the 0/3 body on this is a relevant body when it comes to the mono red deck that's out there right now.
Yeah, that's for sure. Eric in the chat says that he thinks this would be a great drop, a great early drop for Temur Reclamation. So kind of what you're saying with the Simic Nexus, Temur Reclamation, those are wanting to do very similar things, kind of like looking to ramp, where right now they have Growth Spiral is their main ramp spell. This comes down a turn earlier, so... it doesn't draw you a card, but definitely gets you ramp going. All right, anything else before we move on?
I'm ready to move on.
All right, we're moving on to another card. This one's all Scott. I have nothing to do with this. Banehound, take it away.
Look, short and sweet with the Banehound. 1-drop, 1/1, lifelink, haste. I think that is a solo aggro player in the mono black deck. Now, the mono black deck in Standard has not been that prevalent. You're wanting to kind of build a swamp only, use the Cabal land to really ramp up and put a lot of pips into your black 3-drop. I can't remember. You remember the name? We looked it up earlier.
Yeah, the Shade. I think it was
the Shade. Yes, the Nightshade. Yeah, you want to ramp up into that. But I just think this is a solid player in a black aggressive deck, and that's all I'll say.
All right. Well, we'll see how it plays out. My bet is not a chance. All right. Next, Bolas's Citadel. Bolas's Citadel. This is 3 black legendary artifact. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play the top card of your library if you cast the spell. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than paying its mana cost. And then, to wrap it all up, tap, sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life. Let me ask you this. Is that last line of text ever going to be relevant?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
100%. Yes.
Non-land permanents.
Yes, baby.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right.
Are you kidding? This card is the gravy train.
Is this the finisher for the artifact deck? Is that what you're getting at?
I think it could be.
Okay.
In a theoretical artifact deck that we'll probably get more into later, when you're clogging up the battlefield with lots of artifacts that aren't doing a whole lot other than just being artifacts, sacking those puppies to drain 10 life, that's solid.
Yeah. That's a lot of permanents that aren't lands though. So
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Who knows? But hey, here is where this is getting way ahead of ourselves because this is like one of the last cards we're going to talk about. But Ugin makes those 2/2 creatures that when they leave the battlefield, you draw the exiled card. I think that would be hot. So
that's a good point. Eugene's minions would love to sacrifice themselves to the Citadel of Bolas.
His name is Ugin. Okay,
a flavor win for Eugene.
All right. Anything else we want to talk about this card? I think the rest of it's pretty self-explanatory.
I would just say that it is very interesting. Casting spells off your library for life instead of mana. That's just fun. This is a fun card.
Yeah. EDH, probably.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
How many do you put in a standard deck? 1?
Oh, yeah. 1? I mean, if you feel really strongly, you can do 2, maybe 2, but I like 1. I like 1.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on. Next card is Bond of Flourishing. So this card, 1 in a Green Sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. You gain 3 life. Now this is one that you wanted to talk about. You actually wrote, we had a little thing we were talking about beforehand. You were like, let's talk about all the Bond cards. And I said, whoa.
Yeah, you're right. I think that when I wanted to talk about the bond cycle, it was merely to say that the other 4 bonds are hot garbage in Constructed. Some limited playability for sure, but I like Bond of Flourishing in Constructed merely because Adventurous Impulse has already seen some play for your green draw spell in creature decks, and I think that this has some relevant text. It can get a creature, it can get a planeswalker, it can get a land, and even more importantly, if the meta calls for it and there's enough red running around, that gaining 3 life, it can be very relevant. So
sure.
We'll see. It could be playable.
You're really thinking that red is going to continue to be a big player that we need to watch out for.
I can never hedge my bets against red enough.
Sure, absolutely. Just don't like to lose to burn. All right. Before we talk about the next card, real quick, if you love what we're doing here, if you love this stream, if you like that we're previewing these cards, you could really help out my channel here by sharing. You can help out my page by sharing the stream right now, letting your friends know, letting them hop on. That would really be appreciated. Like and follow if you're not already doing that. Okay, next card is Casualties of War. All right, so this card's real exciting. I think we both wanted to talk about this card. 2 black, green sorcery. Choose 1 or more. 1 or more. Destroy target creature, artifact, enchantment, land, planeswalker. there's not a whole lot to talk about here other than you can do a lot. Now, I don't know how much this is going to see play in Standard.
Yeah.
I think this is definitely a commander card. 100%.
Yeah, I see that. And I could see maybe some sideboard play. If there's that deck out there that plays artifacts, that plays enchantments, that plays planeswalkers and creatures, like if there's a board that's trying to maximize its potential for maybe a Tragic Arrogance type card, then this is a really good card to fight against that Tragic Arrogance strategy, the Cataclysm effect.
Let me ask you this, okay? This artifact deck that we've been kind of talking about that involves Tezzeret and could involve Karn and Ugin and all and Bolas's Citadel. Let me paint the picture. You could have a target for an artifact, a creature, a land, and a planeswalker. Are you willing to spend 6 mana at sorcery speed to blow up one of those? I mean, one of each of those.
One of each.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there are worse ways to spend your mana against that deck, but that could be very relevant.
Okay, you're not too convinced, which is okay.
I'm trying to convince myself here.
You don't have to, man. I really think this is much more of a commander card than anything else. So.
It's definitely cool. I like it. It's fun.
And the art is really cool. It reminds me a lot of Maelstrom Pulse. All right, next card. Here we go. This is a big one here. Chandra, Fire Artisan. 2, red, legendary planeswalker Chandra. Whenever one or more loyalty counters are removed from Chandra, she deals that much damage to target opponent or planeswalker. +1, exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. Not cast, but play. -7, exile the top 7 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. We've talked about this card. I think... Now, this is not old Chandra. What's the last one we had? The last Chandra?
Torch of Defiance.
Yeah, this is not a Torch of Defiance. That card was the best Chandra we've ever had.
That card was legendary.
Yeah. This one is also a legendary planeswalker. I'm just kidding.
Touché.
No, but I think this card could be really good, right? Just the static ability itself of whenever counters are removed, you are able to deal damage to an opponent or planeswalkers. It's pretty sweet.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then whenever red can have card advantage at a +1, that's pretty good too, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that we've had some really bad 4-mana Chandras. We've had a pretty mediocre 4-mana Chandra, and then we've had a wowie take me to church 4-mana Chandra. And I'm not saying this is Torch of Defiance like, but this is a card that just plays well into the red archetype. It's burning to the face, and it's giving you card advantage in a way that isn't broken in red. I think it's a solid planeswalker in red for sure.
Okay, yeah. And we'll kind of keep this card in mind, whether like if we think it's super viable based on some other cards we might talk about later.
Sure.
Cool? All right, next card is Command the Dread Horde. There it goes. Command the Dread Horde. So, for black sorcery, choose any number of target creature. Choose any number of target creature and or planeswalker cards in a graveyard. Command the Dread Horde deals damage to you equal to the total converted mana cost of those cards. Put them onto the battlefield under your control. That's kind of gross, right?
Yeah, that mass reanimation, I mean, that's kind of scary, right?
Yeah. Now, I mean, you got to watch it because you're going to be losing quite a bit of life, you know.
For sure. And I think the reason I brought this up is I've seen some people on the internet point out an interesting combo. And a planeswalker we're not going to talk about tonight is called the Wanderer. It's an uncommon 3 and a white. And its static ability is that you prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to you and other permanents you control. And so I think there's a combo going on here where you try to fill up your graveyard throughout the game. You play the Wanderer, in the next turn you follow it up with Command the Dread Horde. And because the Wanderer says you can't take non-combat damage, you don't take non-combat damage.
Yeah, so there it is. There's the Wanderer. You can read all that. I did have it on the list, but only in reference to this card. So yeah, and so that is actually really interesting. That would be such a you just get everything back, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling like a 2-mana or a 2-card Rally the Ancestors type of vibe here.
Yeah. No, I mean that's very real. That's very powerful. Do you know if you cast this and it's on the stack?
Oh yeah, I think you'd eat that damage for sure.
So you cast this and you target all the creatures you want. In response, your opponent kills the Wanderer. You could die.
Yes.
Okay. just to make that clear, if you lose the Wanderer, you could lose the game.
Glass Cannon combo deck, I think, is what we're talking about.
That's a good way to describe it.
Spike, good, A tier, playable, maybe not. Fun for an F&M, absolutely. Light it up.
Yeah. All right. Ready for the next one. This one's coming to you. This one's a sweet card.
Oh, Death Sprout, me more. Now, let me tell you, Marshall. Do you want to read it real quick before I get into my spiel here?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read it. So 1 black, green, instant, destroy target creature. Not a great rate so far, but pretty clean kill, right? Destroy target creature. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So what we have here is your classic, removal spell plus ramp spell.
Yes, your classic removal plus ramp. We've seen a lot of those in our days.
Very prominent. That's a joke for.
Yeah. This is kind of new territory for removal spells, and I think it's interesting. 4 mana is a lot, especially when you have Chupacabra in the format, and much cheaper removal options.
Now we do have Vraska's Contempt.
And we do have Vraska's Contempt. For the same price, you can get rid of a creature by exiling it or a planeswalker and gain 2 life. What really gets me going about this card is something you'll probably hear me mention again by the end of the night, is I'm a big fan of the jellyfish. The jellyfish being... what's the jellyfish?
Hydroid Krasis. It is X, green, blue. And then whatever you pay X for, it gets that many 1/1 counters. And you draw half of X. You draw that many cards, rounding down, and you gain that much life. This is from the previous set, Ravnica Alliance, or Allegiance, whatever it is. What was that called?
Yes.
Yeah, so...
Allegiance.
Allegiance. So not a new card, but would go right into that deck.
Well, and it's not a new card, but it was an exceptionally important card in the last meta. I mean, it made Simic Nexus decks very good. It made Sultai midrange decks very good. I mean, it was just a card that was at the top of the format for a minute. I mean, the price tag shot up a lot at the beginning, but the card is card advantage. It's a body with evasion. And you can pump all the mana you have into it to draw even more cards. The card is just insane. And what I like about Death Sprout is in those jellyfish mirrors where the game is really decided by who's going to draw the most cards and who's going to draw better when they draw those cards. A card like Death Sprout getting you 1 land, 1 land up on your opponent to win that jellyfish fight, I think that's important. Is it snap playable in the Sultai decks right now? Maybe not. Is there a format in the future that could really utilize this card? Maybe. I like it.
Yeah, for sure. I think you've basically said everything there is to say about this card. We've clearly said that with Vraska's Contempt. Now, Vraska's Contempt is a more versatile card for sure, and Exiles, which is relevant. So is this kind of, we have to ask, that's the place it's going to replace, you know? And we don't even see that many Chupacabras in decks anymore. We see kind of the meta has shifted a little bit more to the pirate that steals.
Hostage taker.
Hostage taker, thank you. So it's an interesting place. That deck does have flexibility, and the flexibility is at that 4 spot. So we'll see kind of what happens with that. So next card is Despark.
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 Here I am like, Despark. Despark.
Yeah, it's French Desparqué.
Desparqué.
Yeah.
All right, so Despark, which makes a whole lot more sense than Despark. So we're all learning. We're learning together. So it's a white and a black instant exile target permanent with converted mana cost 4 or greater. Wowzer. Target permanent. Converted mana cost 4 or greater. Yeah, this is. I think this has eternal, like, maybe ramifications.
I could certainly see that. What I really like about this, and you've heard me say this tonight, I kind of run cards through playability options based on the red. It's really easy to play good mid-range cards in a format. Sorry?
I think we lost you for you kind of cut out for just a second. Say that last part again.
Excuse me. I run cards through playability through a gamut, and it's always thinking about red. Mm-hmm. And you can easily play cards in Standard that are too mid-rangey, that hedge your bets against the go big decks and lose to the fast decks. Mm-hmm. And this is a card that hits on all cylinders. Are there a lot of 4-mana creatures in the red deck? No. But this exiles Rekindling Phoenix, which is very relevant, and it exiles the red enchantment. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yes. Experimental Frenzy.
Yes, that's the one.
Yes, and so this is so relevant against the red deck while also being so powerful against big mana planeswalkers, creatures, whatever your opponent's citadels, whatever your opponent's throwing at you, this exiles permanents.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think this card is just going to slide. Now, what decks does it slide into? Does Esper Control want to play this deck over Mortify? I don't think they do.
Probably not over Mortify, but maybe
like a sideboard?
Maybe they find a slot for it. I mean, I think it's going to fit main board in black-white decks, but not the full 4 of it first. Maybe full 4 in the 75, but not in the main board.
This card makes me think we might see like maybe an Abzan mid-range deck. Now, I don't know because you don't get to play Jellyfish in an Abzan deck. Maybe we're going to go back to 4-color decks.
I hope not.
Everything but red. And then no red mid-range, and then just all the best.
And you'll still fit a Niv Mizzet in it. So.
Well, I'm not even gonna try to pretend like I'm not gonna go 5 colors.
You're gonna draw 8 cards, Marshall.
I'm going to draw 7 cards every time. We're getting ahead of ourselves. All right, so Despark, probably a good card we're gonna see quite a bit of in the coming format. Anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah, real quick, call me crazy, but I like some Orsov decks. I mean, it's worth mentioning that there's a Knight of Malice and a Knight of Glory running around out there with a History of Benalia and maybe a new spicy 3-mana Planeswalker to really bolster it into playability. So a removal spell like this would fit well in that deck. So
yeah, for sure. All right, next card is Domri's Ambush. Domri's Ambush. This is a card I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you cared to talk about this, but it is red green sorcery. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Then that creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. So here's a couple things right off the bat that I like about this card, and then I'll talk about some things that I don't like about this card. First thing is it's only 2 mana, and that gives you a 1/1 counter. Sometimes we've seen cards like this that don't give a buff effect. They just kind of like, go ahead and fight or go ahead and deal damage. but you're like, man, I need like a little bit more. This puts a 1/1 counter. Now, it is not a May. It has to deal damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker. But that's not a problem because this card is not a fight card. Right? This is just a deal damage card. So that is better than fight. So, and I don't know if we've ever seen one that lets you deal damage to a planeswalker before.
Yeah, very, very relevant ability there. That this card is so boring to me until I see Planeswalker
right.
on it. And I'm like, wow.
I would not have talked about it if it didn't say Planeswalker. Now, the glaring, like, oh, we probably won't ever play this card, is that it's a sorcery. Like, if it were an instant, this card is
hot.
But because you cannot play it on your opponent's turn or in response to a removal spell, it's going to hold this card back some. But I do think there is going to be some teamer. Maybe teamer, but there's going to be some Gruul decks out there that are going to be very fast, very big, and are going to want that spell to kind of push damage through, right? To go, hey, I have creatures that are bigger than yours. Even if you play one, I'm just going to kill it and keep swinging through.
Yeah, that sounds like the Gruul mindset, if I've ever heard it.
Yeah. So
now, if I may, real quick, I think an even more glaring weakness to this card, something that you haven't mentioned that I'm surprised about, is that in the past when we've gotten cards like this, the art on it has been a guy punching a bear or a guy punching a dragon. The art on this one, not nearly as exciting.
Domri is just going, sick him, get him.
Yeah, which is not as cool as punching a bear, but that's my final point on the card.
You know, every card can't be a guy punching a bear, you know. Only in Tarkir. You know, bring back Tarkir. Hashtag bring back Tarkir. All right, ready to go to the next one.
By all means.
All right, here we go. Dovin's Veto. Dovin's Veto. So this is white and a blue, instant. This spell can't be countered, period. Counter target non-creature spell. So this is an uncounterable negate. So a negate that trumps negates.
Yeah, Marshall, can I just say that this is going to be played in almost every white and blue deck? Like, almost every white and blue deck is playing negate right now. So this is just going to fit in that spot. I've already seen lists for the mono white zoo deck that has this in the sideboard.
Yes. No, this card is an instant like upgrade from negate. If you play white and blue, like you said, it's going in every deck. Let me ask you the question. Modern. Is there a deck in Modern that wants to play this card?
I would say the days of Counter Wars in Modern are kind of behind us. Okay. The format's pretty linear. However, when Control is popular and it goes through its sways, I mean, a card like this could be a real sideboard player in those mirror matches. So I could very easily see this in some blue-white Control sideboards. Yeah.
I just want to make a point about our last card, Dahmer's Ambush. Eric did chime in and said there's proliferate in this format. So that's kind of relevant to adding a counter. Maybe you could proliferate later. But
absolutely.
Anyway, all right. Any more about Dovin's Veto before we move on?
Insanely playable. Get it out of my face. I'm already sick of looking at that card.
All right, you're gonna get even more sick as we play more standard. All right, so Dread Horde Arcanist. I don't care. Go ahead and talk about it.
Look, this card, and understandable. When I first read this card, I felt pretty mad about it. But if you're on Star City, and I think it's the premium side, so you got to spend some money on it. But if you read the Ross Merriam article where he talks about basically a Boros heroic deck in the upcoming standard, heroic, if for those who did not play during Theros standard, heroic was an ability on creatures that said when you target it, you put a 1/1 counter on it, or it got some other cool effect. But with some cards that are coming out now, Feather, 10th District Legionnaire, you are incentivized to play a red-white deck that plays some pump spells to pump your creatures up. A lot of 1-mana pump spells, too. And so in this deck, where you're already playing pump spells, pumping up a Dreadhorde Arcanist, or pumping up your 10th Street Legionnaire, or your Featherer, this is just gravy. This lets you cast more pump spells out of the graveyard for absolutely free. And so I think it's a real player in that deck if that deck ever becomes a thing.
Did we ever read what this card actually does? I think I just threw it in your face and said, here's the card. I'll read it. Yeah, so 1 a red, trample 1/3. When Dreadhorde Arcanist attacks, you may cast target instant sorcery card with converted mana cost less than or equal to Dreadhorde and Arcanist power from your own graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card will be put into your graveyard this turn, exile instead. So yeah, that's kind of like, just so people knew like what you were talking about with like, heroic, and it's a bunch of pump spells, right?
Yeah, and call me crazy. I mean, this is almost like a red Snapcaster. Okay, don't throw anything at me. It's a standard red Snapcaster. It's cool. The card's cool.
It's not far. It's not far from it. We do have the actual red Snapcaster though. What card was that? I can't even remember. It's like a 2/1 first strike. No. The 2/1 first strike. And it is basically a Snapcaster without flash.
The pirate, yeah, very cool card. Very cool card. You're right.
I wish that we were better at knowing the names of cards. It's like I could tell you everything it does, but I couldn't tell you the name. All right. Anything else about the Arcanist before we move on?
Now we can move on.
All right. Another Dreadhorde Butcher. Black-red haste 1/1. Zombie warrior, for what that matters. When it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, put a 1/1 counter on it, and then when it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Obviously, super aggressive card. If this comes down on turn 2 and there's nothing in its way, we're talking about some serious business here.
Yeah, when I first saw this card, I don't know why, but I was just not impressed. It's a lot of text, a lot of abilities. None of them seemed very strong to me for being a 1/1. Mm-hmm. But I watched a Star City video today of Emma Handy playing it in a Mardu Aristocrats deck, and she just won the game off the back of this puppy at one point in time. It's worth noting that Judith pumps this. It's worth noting that you can sack it to deal damage to any target. I mean, this card does a lot, and it is definitely a real player in a red-black aggressive deck or an aristocrat deck where you're trying to gain some advantage from sacrificing your own creatures.
Mm-hmm. Just as a side note, Philip in the chat said that the name of that card we're looking for is Direfleet Daredevil. That's the red Snapcaster.
Bless you, Philip.
Yeah, so I think this card, it's got to be in a super aggressive deck. And with Judith, you're right. It's going to be probably a pretty good card. But, yeah. So it's a player in that deck for sure. For sure. I would not be surprised to see this in that kind of deck as a 4-of. All right. Anything else?
I'm good.
All right. So next one. Dreadhorde Invasion. Scott's favorite card.
Are you put this on here? Did you do this to mess with me?
1 and a black. At the beginning, it's an enchantment.
And then you're going to read it?
At the beginning of the upkeep, you lose 1 life and amass 1. And then whenever a zombie token you control with power 6 or greater attacks, it gains lifelink until end of turn. This is fairies, man.
It is not a bitter blossom. It's a poor man's bitter blossom.
It is not. It's not even close to a bitter blossom.
And that poor man should be ashamed of himself.
So is this our first amass card? And it might be our only amass card.
Maybe, yeah.
Amass is going to be a good mechanic for limited, but constructed, I do not have a lot of reason to be excited about it. Here's the problem with Amass. Amass says put a 1/1 counter on an army you control. If you don't control one, create a 0/0 black zombie army creature token first. So basically, Amass 1, you don't have any armies. You make an army. You get a 1/1 counter. You have a 1/1 army. The next time, the 1/1 counter has to go on the army. So Bitter Blossom was good because you went wide and they had evasion. This does not go wide. This goes tall and takes 6 turns to get something with lifelink, which they could just kill. Like,
yeah, have you ever seen Ghostbusters?
I have, yes.
You remember the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because this card is weak and pathetic, and a giant balloon is stupid.
All right, and with that, we're on to the next card. All right, Evolution Sage. Now, I put this one on the list, right? You didn't put did you put this one on the list?
I think I put it on the list.
You might have put it on, and then I was like, oh, yeah, this card's good.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're going to talk about this.
Planeswalker deck. Planeswalker deck, Planeswalker deck, Planeswalker deck.
Why don't you read the card first?
Okay. 2 green, creature, elf, druid. 3/2. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, proliferate. Proliferate says choosing number of permanents and or players, then give each another counter of each kind already there. So anything that takes counters, Proliferate says put another counter on any one of those things that already have a counter. So
I think of when I look at this card, it's kind of subtle, but I immediately start to think of every good 3-drop we've ever had in Standard. Mm-hmm. I think of Tireless Tracker. I think of Courser of Crufix. Mm-hmm. Heck, call me crazy, Marshall. I think of 2 words, Sylvan Carriage.
That's a 2-drop, but
but still, a solid green card.
Uh-huh.
Evolution Sage, it's a 3/2, not that exciting, but man, does that land ETB effect probably matter so much in your green mid-range decks.
I mean, this is going to be huge.
I think it's going to be huge. I'm impressed by it.
Yeah. When I read the card, did I say whenever a land enters the battlefield, or did I say whenever it enters the battlefield?
I don't remember, but it's whenever a land enters.
Yeah, which is way better than it. So, but here's my deal, okay? Like, if I'm playing the Planeswalker deck, this is the first creature I put into it. Right?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Because I'm going to ramp those puppies. And this goes right into the Ajani, the Greathearted deck, right? So we're playing lands, we're putting counters on Planeswalkers, we're playing Ajani, we're putting counters on Planeswalkers. I'm ultimating all the Planeswalkers. I'm also living in magical, rainbow Christmas land. But
for sure, those are lofty goals. I mean, but Eric even brought up in the chat, you can play this the turn after. You can play Circuitous Route the turn after this. You can get a lot of proliferation with the cards that are available to you in Standard.
Absolutely.
Is the big wide Planeswalker deck a thing? Maybe not. But is just getting some solid value and ramping up your one Planeswalker at a time pretty helpful? Yeah, that could win games.
Yeah. We also have to think about what other cards have 1/1 counters on creatures too that might go in this deck.
I don't know if you've ever heard
Jellyfish. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good one. You might have heard of Merfolk Branchwalker, Jade Light Ranger, Wild Growth Walker. Interesting cards.
What do those cards do? I'm just kidding. Those are great.
Yeah, cards are great.
All those cards explore and have 1/1 counters on them. So I'm sure y'all probably knew that. All right. Anything else we want to say about this this staple of the format?
Insane. I love it. Give me.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a day 1 staple until it rotates out, probably. All right, and it's uncommon, so you don't have to spend a lot of money on it. All right, next card. I hate that we're even talking about this card. Fibblethip, the Lost.
Look, this card is great. Elvish Visionary. Base level Elvish Visionary. A 2-mana 1/1 that draws a card. That's hot. That is hot. And I've already seen it in deck lists. Emma Handy played it on stream today. It's a YouTube video up now from Star City. She plays it in a Vanifar Sultai deck. Can you imagine potting Llanowar Elves away to get a Fibblethip? It's gold. It's incredible.
I'm not a believer, all right?
Marshall, I think if Elvish Visionary were in front of us right now, you'd be like, yeah, this card's good. It's playable.
Here's the problem. Elvish Visionary was not legendary. This is.
Yeah, well, Elvish Visionary didn't shuffle back into your library for more awesome future card-drawing shenanigans either.
It only shuffles back in when it's targeted. Who's going to target this with anything?
Crazy people?
Who's going, I got to remove Fibblethip?
And I'll say, I'm kind of with you. This card is not that exciting. And I'm the one who has to talk about it. And really, seeing Emma Handa's video today made me like it more. But really, what I think is the most interesting thing about this card is these are some very interesting lines of text on it. And it doesn't appear that you can break this in Standard and Modern right now. But this is one of those cards that kind of just screams value and combo potential to me. And so I think it's very possible that in the future we could see this card paired with something else to kind of be doing some bogus, interesting stuff. So it's merely an interesting pickup for me. If you rip this out of a pack, hold on to it. It could be good one day. You never know.
Or it could be worth nothing because Fibblethip is nothing.
Or Fibblethip is adorable and you should shut up, Marshall.
Here's the best thing that's come out of this card. Somebody cosplayed as Fibblethip. That's the best thing. I saw it on the internet.
That was hilarious. Wow. Right. Everybody check that out on the internet if you get a chance.
Go look it up. All right. Next card. And we probably need to pick up the pace just a tad here because we still have lots of cards to go. Feather the Redeemed. Feather the Redeemed. Red, white, legendary creature, angel, flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature you control, exile that card instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step.
Yeah, and just to keep this short, we already kind of talked about the Boros Heroic deck. If you're targeting this to pump it in a deck that wants you to be doing that, I think that this card benefits you for playing that style deck. Yeah. I think that Boros Heroic deck could be a thing. Watch out for it. It's also worth mentioning that this has made modern cards spike. If you get on MTG stocks right now, you can see that Cerulean Wisps, I think, has gone from like 10 cents to $3.
Don't even know what that is.
But that's the point. This card is making people rethink their commons and rethink their previous unplayables. An interesting card. When a card comes out and does that, you got to keep an eye on it.
Yeah. All right. Next card. Finale of Devastation. Did you want to talk about this, or was this just me?
I know. I think I put it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think I would have put it on as well. So, X green sorcery. Search your library and or graveyard for a creature with converted mana cost X or less and put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. If X is 10 or more, creatures you control get +X and gain haste until end of turn. So, if you have 12 mana, this card wins you the game.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And especially in a format with Ingra's Forerunners, yeah, that does win you the game.
Yeah. So, right off the bat, first thing you thought, it reminded you of a certain card that is banned in Modern.
Yeah, Green Sun Zenith is banned in Modern. And it's the first half of this text box for 1 mana less, and it lets you get a green creature. Mm-hmm. And it's banned in Modern. So a card that does basically the exact same thing, but way better for 1 extra mana, you got to keep your eye on this as maybe being crazy.
Yeah. And it also, Green Sun Zenith just lets you search. Well, it puts it into play, though. Yeah, it puts it into play. This you can also look to your graveyard. So that can be relevant.
It could be relevant. Yeah, it's innocuous and it's small, but it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and like we said, if you get to that 10, I mean, I don't know how you lose. Like,
yeah, if you ever get to 10 and get a Crater Hoof, like, I mean, that's EDH and, Modern Legacy, but, like, if you get a Crater Hoof with this, congratulations, you win at life.
Like, let's say you get to 14 in Standard, which, not going to happen. But if it did, Galta.
Yeah, slamming down a Galta? That's hilarious.
24 haste trample. Good game.
GG.
Anyway, anything else we want to say about this card?
Interesting. I would be holding on to these for also modern playability. So,
yeah.
Could be good. Who knows?
Yeah, that we've seen mono green decks in modern before make a lot of mana.
That's very true.
So who knows? And play Craterhoof. So.
Yes.
All right. Next card, Finale of Promise. Finale of Promise. X red. There are a cycle of finales, and they're all, I believe, X spells. They all have a bonus for X being 10 or more. So this one says, you may cast up to one target instant card and up to one target sorcery card from your graveyard, each with converted mana cost X or less, without paying their mana cost. Okay, so you say X equals 4, you can cast a instant and or a sorcery with converted mana cost 4 or less from your graveyard without paying their cost. Now, the bonus is if you paid 10, then you copy each of those spells twice, and you may choose new targets. So let's say you did, let's say Modern. Remember, let's just do Standard, right? You go X equals 2, you get a Lightning Strike, and you get a Lava Coils. That's 4 mana. You did 3 to the face, 4 to a creature. How do you feel about that?
Not the worst thing in the world. Not the worst thing in the world. It's definitely good. And really the reason I wanted to talk about this more than anything, getting your burn spells back is already pretty awesome. Reutilizing those burn spells, especially when removal matters, that's tight. But in a world where we have Arclight Phoenix already in the format, this is a card that casts 2 spells off the bat. And so with Arclight Phoenix running around, obviously breaking Modern, just being busted and too good in Modern, I think in Standard it's still something to look at. Within those, what are they called? In the Drake's deck, in the Phoenix and Drake's deck, this card could be a real player that allows you to get a lot of extra advantage from the earlier cards.
For sure. There's a lot that you can do here. Again, I don't think you're ever going to get to 10 with this card. But if you did, correct me if I'm wrong, you're casting 6 spells, right?
I think so, yeah, which is pretty hilariously insane.
Or I guess you're casting 2, copying both of them twice, which would be 6 instances, right?
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah. Again, if X equals 10 on any of these cards, you win the game. I'm pretty sure that's how it works, right?
Yeah, which is a fun time. A fun time for sure.
All right, we're going to move on to the next card. This is one of our premier cards for the set. Big format molder. Something we can talk about. Gideon Blackblade. 1 white legendary planeswalker Gideon has 2 static abilities. As long as it's your turn, Gideon is a 4/4 human soldier creature with indestructible that is still a planeswalker. And then the second line of text says, prevent all damage that would be dealt to Gideon during your turn. So, right there you got a 4/4 indestructible that can't be dealt, that is prevent all damage on your turn. So,
yeah, and really before we even get to the abilities on this card, this is already giving me some PTSD of Gideon Ally of Zendikar.
Yes.
Gideon Ally of Zendikar saw so much play in
This is probably going to see just as much play.
Return to Zendikar standard. I think that we are going to see this card all over the place. Yeah, its static ability off the bat, just being a 4/4 beater with indestructible for 3 mana, that is nuts.
Well, I've got some good news for you, Scott.
Give it to me.
Gideon dies in this set.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. But we won't ever have a broken Gideon again after this one.
Yeah, until we get a black-white one where he's half zombie.
No, he's dead. He's not coming back.
Half zombie. Okay.
Never coming
Look,
back.
I guarantee that the Night King will turn him into a White Walker. Okay.
All right, here we go. I don't get the Game of Thrones reference, but anyway, +1. Up to one other target creature you control gains your choice of Vigilance, Lifelink, or Indestructible until end of turn.
Gravy plus.
Yeah, like nothing to write home about really. Just fine. -6. Exiled target non-land permanent. How often are you going to -6 this card?
It doesn't matter. It's a 4/4 beater for 3 mana.
I'm just asking a question. I'm not saying the card. I'm not saying that's like a make or break. I'm just like, do you ever envision yourself like -6ing this? Like maybe a few times. Like if you play 10 matches with this, you might do it once.
I'm shot calling this now, but Game 5 of the next Pro Tour / Mythic Championship, whatever it's called, in the finals is going to come down to somebody using their minus Gideon to exile the other person's Gideon and win the game because of it.
Dude, I hope that's what happens.
I'm shot calling it.
I don't want to see that because that would be probably really disgusting.
I would have quit watching hours ago, but that's how it's going to end.
Sean chimed in and said that he's happy that he's gone. I think we're all happy.
But this Gideon is going to be insane, and I've seen so many brews with it already. I won my PPTQ with Mono White Zoo, and this card it's going to find a place there. It is going to come in and absolutely hurt people. So
# bring back Garrick. All right. Garrick Apex Predator. I saw the alternate art that they're doing. Man, I wanted that card so bad. All right, let's keep moving on here. Next card, your PTSD is still going to stick around because we're still talking about Gideon, but this time Gideon's Triumph. 1 and a white instant. Target opponent sacrifices a creature that attacked or blocked this turn. If you control a Gideon Planeswalker, that player sacrifices 2 of those creatures instead. Now, I do want to point out there is a cycle of Triumph cards. Scott said, let's put them all in the list. And I said, no, Scott. Only 2 of them are really worth talking about. We're not going to talk about Jace's Triumph, but if there was a good Jace Planeswalker, which we do not believe there is, right? That would probably be the best one, in my opinion.
I think that's fair.
Now, Gideon's Triumph is probably the best one for Standard right now because we're going to see a bunch of Gideons. That's what we think. That's what we believe.
I think that, we're going to see enough Gideons in enough decks that a card like this is probably not main deckable, but we're going to see a lot of these out of sideboards for Gideon decks.
I disagree, Scott. I'm slapping this puppy main board if I'm playing for Gideon.
Well, maybe you're right and maybe I'm wrong, but this card is absolutely disgusting for how good it is with how much I think we're going to be seeing Gideon in this coming Standard. So, because
I'm going to be like, all right, Gideon, like swing in with Gideon. They're not going to block. Like they're not blocking Gideon because he's not going to die unless they have like a bigger creature. And then Gideon's Triumph. Now their creature's gone. Like
I think you solved it, man. Standard's busted. You beat it.
Okay, this is a little oversimplified, but man, I think if you're playing 4 Gideons, there's no reason not to play like at least 2 of these.
Yeah, you could be right. I'm going to stick to I think it's very sideboardable, but very strong because Gideon is so good. All
right, another white card here is God Eternal Oketra. It is costs 3 white legendary creature zombie god, double strike 3/6. Already a good start. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with vigilance. And then when God Eternal Oketra dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library, third from the top. Now that last bit of text about putting it into your library, every God Eternal card has that line of text. Just to kind of remember. We're not going to talk about all the gods in this set, but Oketra was certainly one that we wanted to bring up. So,
hey, and thanks to Eric Sherrill for the 100 stars on the stream. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate that, man.
Yeah, I said all for Marshall, so I think he really likes you and he really doesn't like me. But
oh man, well, that's okay. We might not bring Scott back next time.
That's fair.
No.
I understand.
No. So, what do you think about this card? Very powerful, like raw power level through the roof. A+, 10 out of 10. Right?
Have you ever seen the movie The Incredible Hulk?
I thought you were going to ask me if I'd seen Ghostbusters again.
Have you ever seen Ghostbusters?
The Incredible Hulk, which one?
Any of them, man. You get the premise of who the Hulk is.
They're
Mark
terrible.
Ruffalo.
I hate those movies, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Ruffalo, incredible in Foxcatcher, incredible in Spotlight, incredible as the Hulk.
Yeah.
You know, moral of this story is this is a young pyromancer that took so many roids and gamma rays that became a god eternal. And now when you cast creatures, you get 4/4s. This card is absolutely insane.
Hey, Scott, I want to stop. You got 10 stars.
Oh, thank you. 1/10. 1/10. Golly.
Dude, you're totally right, though. Like, if you would have told Magic players in, 1998, right? If you would have shown them this card, they would have been like, whose 7-year-old nephew, drew up a Magic card? It's like, yeah, here's a 3/6 double strike creature that also, whenever I cast any other creature, I just get another 4/4.
Yeah, and it's really hard to remove permanently. This card is just doing so much. And I think that because the 5 mana cost is a big barrier for me into liking its playability. I think it might be costed just a bit too much to get the real value out of it, but still pretty insane in any white mid-range deck that could want to play this.
This is going into my Johnny deck, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, do
my
it.
Johnny Tulsamir deck. All right, okay. We good here? We want to move on to the next one?
We're good. Card's hilarious.
Okay. All right, next card. God Eternal Ronus. Man, we debated.
Let's come back to it. Let's come back to it.
We want to come back to this?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it right now.
Okay, why not?
What does it do? Real
Nothing.
quick.
Doesn't do anything.
It's a 5 mana, 5/5 death touch. When it enters, you double all the power of the creatures on the board.
Bam. There we go.
Impressive.
That's what it does.
Impressive.
Do we really want to come back to this later?
Yeah, we can come back to it.
I mean, do we have a reason to come back to it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I got one in mind.
All right, here we go. Next card. Grim Initiate. We're just scraping the bottom of the barrel here. We're saying we'll take them all. 1 mana, 1/1 first strike. When it dies, amass 1.
Solid playable in an Aristocrats deck. This is the fodder that an Aristocrats deck wants. And there is an Aristocrats deck that is...
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're right. I went a little too long. Grim Initiate, playable in an Aristocrats deck, good fodder. Let's Guild Globe. What does Guild Globe have?
Guild Globe. 2 mana, artifact. 2 generic mana. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. 2 taps, sacrifice it, add 2 mana of different colors.
This enters the battlefield and it draws a card.
Mm-hmm.
Which is solid. Without going too much into it, we think that there might be a very reasonable artifact-based combo synergy deck that really
Grim
wants
Initiate
a card.
Is a 1/1. I'm just kidding.
Guild Globe, playable in the artifact deck, and we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, this is definitely a card we'll talk more about later. I'll just give you a hard time, Scott.
It's fine. I'm over it.
Crowd's loving it, though. Crowd's loving it. All right, here we go. Next one. Ignite the Beacon. Now, you can give me a hard time about this one because I know you will. All right, so Planeswalker deck, right? This is the starting base. Or control deck that runs, I don't know, Teferi, 5-mana Teferi. Right?
And 3-mana Teferi.
Well,
and Kaya.
Probably Kaya. I don't know about 3-mana Teferi. Maybe. We'll see. So, this card, 4 and a white instant. Search your library for up to 2 Planeswalker cards. Reveal them, put them in your hand, then shuffle your library. If this is not an instant, it's not playable. It's garbage. You throw it away. You don't even want to do anything with it. But it's an instant, though. And so that makes me want to talk about it. Like we said, we were kind of brainstorming. We think the place where it has the best chance is probably a control deck that has as its win condition Planeswalkers. So Esper control, end of turn, go and get your Planeswalker win conditions, whatever they may be, whether that's a Karn, Teferi, Kaya, whatever, right? So you draw, you pass, you hold up a counter spell. They don't play something you want to counter. You play this at the end of the turn. This is your 5th copy of Teferi. This is your utility. Go get the Planeswalkers you want. Trash it all you want, Scott. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I honestly not a big fan of this card. I don't really believe in the Planeswalker deck. For 5 mana, it's just a lot to go get Planeswalkers. I think you could probably just play draw spells and still run a fine deck. But more than anything, Eric Sherrill got in the chat, and he gave us 50 stars to talk about Fibblethip for the rest of the stream, and I think we should honor that. That's worth more of our time than Ignite the Beacon is.
Man,
okay?
You know what? You're right. I think I'll take that as a stop talking about Ignite the Beacon.
Yeah, you like it. I don't. That's kind of where we're at on it.
Yeah, and we're going to move on. All right, so this one we're calling Ilharg the Razeboar. This is if Scott were an animal, he would be Ilharg the Razeboar. Green mohawk and everything. This is a god. This is a legendary creature boar god. This does have the text about the same one that the Eternal God said, shuffle, like put it back third from the top, that kind of thing. 6/6 trample for 3 red. Whenever the raised boar attacks, not deals damage, just attacks, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking, then return that creature to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. Scott, convince me.
Look, first of all, this card is so metal. A 5-mana 6/6 with trample that has a green mohawk, I'm already sold. This could be the cover of my next death metal album. But more than that, as a self-proclaimed Through the Breach aficionado, this card is insane. Through the Breach, for those who aren't aware, it's a 5-mana red instant, sees modern play, and lets you slap a creature on the battlefield from your hand, gives it hastes, and makes you sacrifice it at the end step. This card does the same thing, and it has to live a turn, so it's a little bit worse.
A lot worse.
I would say Through the Breach doesn't have medium worse. Medium worse. Through the Breach doesn't have a 6/6 trample body, but at the end of the day, if this eats a removal spell, that's okay. Like, you're probably playing some decent mid-range creatures up behind this. Sure. But if you are able for an instant to get any creature off this, I think that you are getting so much value. And this is why I wanted to come back to Ronus. If you can attack with Ilharg and slap Ronus down with it, Ronus is going to double the power of Ilharg and everything else that's attacking. I think that is already such a cool combo. And that's not even mentioning that we have 9-mana 3-headed dinosaurs in this format. We have a 12-mana T-Rex. I'm talking about the 5-drop that's already good. You can be doing so much with this card that I think I'm not sure it's going to be busted breaking standard, but I think it's going to be in a really fun mid-range deck.
You know what I also just remembered we have in this format? A great target, Fibblethip.
Honestly, it's going to draw you a card.
You're drawing a card.
You're drawing a card.
1/1 body, and if they target it, goes back to your deck. Shuffle it in. Wow.
Very cool. Very cool. I like Ilharg a lot. I'm going to be looking to play this as soon as I possibly can.
All right. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think EDH might have more fun with this card. But Standard could do some real stuff with it too. Cool?
Let's move on.
Right. Next one. Karn the Great Creator. This is a 4 generic mana legendary planeswalker Karn with 5 loyalty counters, so that's really good rate. Static ability that says activated abilities of artifacts your opponents control can't be activated. Okay? And then +1 until your next turn. Up to 1 target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness, each equal to its converted mana cost. So, turn your Guild Globe into a 2/2. Turn your Bolas the Citadel into a 6/6.
Yeah, and this is the card that we're talking about that's going to fit into this artifact synergy deck. Really...
Tezzeret's the one, but this would go in there as well.
Yeah, I think we should go ahead and talk about it since Tezzeret's not coming up until the end, but we're talking about an artifact combo synergy deck that is just looking to get gravy from its artifact. Tezzeret lets you deal damage to a target equal to how many artifacts you have. Mm-hmm. So playing Guild Globe, drawing cards, playing Fountain of Renewal, gaining life, playing either of the Karns to get artifacts and to synergize with artifacts, we think it's very possible with that plus Psy Master Thopterist, there could be something really interesting about an artifact synergy deck.
Yeah. And its last ability, -2. I'm not sure how relevant this is, but it might be. You may choose an artifact card you own from outside the game or in exile, reveal that card, and put it in your hand. Something I just thought of, not a super great ability, but if you have both Karns in play and you +1 the other Karn, and you put the card in exile, you could get that with this -2 ability.
Interesting. I haven't thought of that.
I don't know if you're ever going to do that, but you could. And I think you'd probably play both Karns. Let me ask you this: Would you play the other Karn? Which Karn are you putting in your deck first?
I really like the other Karn more.
Okay.
This Karn is very cool, has some really interesting abilities. But I think the other Karn having the propensity to make you those XX constructs while also giving you pretty reasonable Karn advantage just puts it over the top for me.
What about this? You main board the other Karn, the Dominaria Karn. But when you're in the mirror match, you bring these in from the sideboard. They can't activate the activated abilities of artifacts.
Oh, yeah. Very cool. Yeah, that's solid. I love that.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll
Lots
see.
to talk about. All right. Next
and
card.
while we move on, Eric Sherrill, 50 stars for Scott to shut up with his useless dribble. I think we should honor that.
All right. I'll just take the rest of the show over. Eric, I really appreciate all the stars, and especially when they're given in hate. That's really what I like. All right. So Kiora, this is actually a card that Scott wanted to talk about, so we'll just go ahead and skip this one. Next one, Liliana, the Dread Horde General. All right, we'll go back. We'll talk about Kiora.
Yeah, I'm going to make this real quick. Its statics ability lets you draw a card if you cast a creature with power 4 or greater. And with 7 loyalty, -1 to untap target permanent. This ramps, untapping a permanent can be a land, so this ramps you. In a Stompy deck, even your 3 drops have more than 4 power. So I think that this acts as a card draw engine in Stompy decks, as well as a bit of a ramp incentive. However, in a handy Sultai Vanifar deck today, it's worth noting that you can tap your Vanifar to get your Birthing Pod ability, untap it with Kiora, and do it a second time in the same turn. So it's already has some synergy with Vanifar to let you kind of do the Birthing Pod utility creature deck.
What is Vanifar? Do I not know this card?
It's
standard.
It's in standard, yeah. It's big EDH playable, really, but it's a birthing pod on a stick that we got as a legendary creature for 4 mana, like a couple sets ago.
Okay, well that's interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't see much play because it's not that good. It has to live a turn, but you know.
Yeah. All right, next card, Liliana Dreadhorde General, 4 black, legendary planeswalker Liliana. Static ability, whenever a creature you control dies, draw a card, which is great. That's a great static ability. I'm loving it. 6 loyalty counters when it comes in, so that's a good rate, 6 for 6. +1, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Good +1. That's fine. -4, each player sacrifices 2 creatures. If there are 4 creatures to sacrifice, doing quick math, you're going to draw 4 cards.
Quick math.
You could draw less because there could be less creatures to sacrifice. That's really good for a lot of reasons. -9, each opponent chooses a permanent they control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest. So you win the game.
Before we talk about its playability, let's talk about famous 6-mana planeswalkers. Can you think of any?
Elspeth.
Elspeth, the Sun's Champion. Is Liliana better or worse?
Worse.
Wrong.
Ooh.
Liliana Dreadhorde General is insane. 6-mana planeswalker, so much better than Elspeth. Elspeth made 3 creatures, really cool. Destroyed creatures with toughness or power 4 or greater, cool. Had a really strong emblem minus ultimate, cool. This card draws you cards without doing anything. This card is hilariously insane. Insane. 6-mana planeswalker. Elspeth the Sun's Champion. Eat your heart out. I'm going to go home and tear all my copies up. Liliana Dreadhorde General is my new love.
Can I have those copies? Is that okay?
I'm tearing them up.
No, don't tear them up. I'll take them. I'll adopt them. I'm
going to tear each one into 3 pieces so it can be a token for your other Elspeth.
Dude, that if someone had that at a tournament, I would laugh so hard.
I would
These
shake
are my
their
Elspeth tokens.
Well done.
So here's the real question, and I actually I was being real conservative. I do really like this card a lot. This card is insane, but do we play a 6-mana black planeswalker in any deck in Standard?
I mean, any mid-range deck that plays creatures, I think the answer is yes. Are you saying this is just and I want to be on board. I want to get on this train with you and say this card is amazing and we're playing it. Is that what we're saying? Choo-choo, idiot. We're doing it.
Okay. I really got the vibe earlier that you were not behind this card.
No, and I changed my mind since then. I watched some videos with it. I watched it get play. It's incredible.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I always thought it was. So...
Yeah, I changed my mind. This card is dope. I think it already just goes into the green-black big mid-range decks. Can you imagine this with a Midnight Reaper? When drawing cards is so important to those mid-range decks, that card is insane.
Now let's talk about Liliana's Triumph, which is 1 in a black, instant. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. If you control a Liliana Planeswalker, each opponent also discards a card. So... in this land where you have a Liliana in play, and then you play Liliana's Triumph, your opponent sacrifices a creature, discards a card, and you draw a card for 2
mana. Very solid. Very solid.
Yeah. But we also want to talk about this card for Modern.
Yeah, I think you're right that Gideon's Triumph is better in Standard. And I've seen this card talked about in Modern, specifically in Grixis Death Shadow. If you know anything about Modern, Grixis Death Shadow is kind of a very low-to-the-ground, mid-rangey control deck. It's almost the legacy deck of Modern. And this is the perfect card that slots right in there. You have 3-mana Lilianas, so you can get the value from this card easily and quickly. And it is just going to be a 2-for-1 that will win you games. This card is just a solid playable in Death Shadow.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to the next card. Mizium Tank. Oh, that's not it. There we go. Mizium Tank. It is a 1 red artifact vehicle that if it becomes a creature is a 3/2 with trample. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Mizium Tank becomes an artifact creature and gets +1/+1 until end turn. And it crews for 1. This is your card.
No, yeah, I think that this, I'm answering Jack Wells in the comments right now. Jack, miss you, buddy. But yeah, I think the Drake's decks that we already have in Standard are so good with so few creatures and so many instants and sorceries. And this is a 3/2 creature that doesn't die to removal at your opponent's sorcery speed, but for just 1 instant or sorcery, becomes a creature and has prowess. I'm not sure, and trample, which is a reasonable evasion. I'm not sure that this card is that playable compared to Enigma Drake or Crackling Drake, but I just really like the prowess vehicle that you don't need to crew. In a red-blue instants and sorceries matter deck, I think that this could be a real beater.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think this could see some play, but I also think it very well could not.
Yeah, and I can agree with you that it could also see no play.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I want to see what it does. All right, next card. This is one that I'm really excited about. Mobilized District is a land. It taps for a colorless mana, and then it has an activated ability for 4 generic mana. Mobilized District becomes a 3/3 citizen creature with vigilance until end of turn. It's still a land. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature and or planeswalker you control. And planeswalker. Wait. Okay. Should that say and or is that implying that, like, for each pair? I don't believe that's what that means.
1 less to activate for each legendary creature and planeswalker you control?
That doesn't mean like a pair of the two, right? That means like...
Yeah, it means one or the other, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they say and or? I don't know. Anyway. Okay, well, whatever. I'm sure we're reading it correctly. So in the world where we have a Planeswalker deck, I think this card could be really good. Okay, let me take that back. It could be a good utility card. Because a 3/3 with Vigilance isn't always going to be just like the best thing ever. But, like, you start to have, like if the board clears and there's no creatures, this is something you just kind of get to attack in with. Even if you have to pay 4 for this in the late game, I don't think you're going to be that upset about it.
No, and mana lands are historically very playable in Standard, even Modern. And I'm not big on this because it costs 4. But I think you're right. I think this does have solid playability to it. And even having 1 Planeswalker or a second legendary creature on the battlefield, getting a 3/3 for 2 mana, even 4 mana late game is really just solid. I can live with it.
Yeah. The biggest drawback, of course, here is that it does not make colored mana. So it's going to hurt you there. So.
Yeah, and that, to me, this kind of looks like the card you're putting in your like big wild a ton of planeswalkers deck, and that deck is going to have to be multicolor. And so this card does not fit well in a multicolor mana base. But if you're able to stay nice and disciplined with your planeswalker deck, this could be a solid include. For sure.
All right, next card. This is you. Let's go real quick on this one if we can.
Look, I'm just gonna say it. You kind of convinced me that it was bad until I remembered that Banefire exists. If you're playing against a Banefire deck, this is going to help you win. If somebody's trying to Banefire you for 20, this is the card you're going to want out of the sideboard.
That's very true.
True.
It is a corner case. It is not the most common thing, but that is true. It does help with that, but it also is a counterspell. So.
And there are some other big X spells we're seeing in this format, so maybe it might see play in sideboards, maybe not. That's really all there is to say about it.
Yeah. So this gets around. So I'll just read it real quick. It's a blue instant copy target instant sorcery spell. then return it to its owner's hand. You may choose a new target for the copy. So, So here's the deal. Even if Banefire is over 5, you're not countering it, and you're not preventing the damage. You're returning it to their hand. So it gets around that way. It is also could just kill them, like with that Banefire. So that is really sweet. And yeah, I think that's all we need to say about that. Does this get played in Modern at all? Do you think?
I kind of doubt it.
Okay, all right. Kind of in the same thing as Dovin's verdict, just that it's just counter magic just isn't really a thing in Modern right now.
Yeah, not that important with such a linear format we have.
Okay.
But as we move on, Eric paid 500 stars for me to play Flip It or Rip It with my first 5 War of the Spark packs.
Are we going to live stream that then?
I think we have to honor it.
Okay, we'll do that. Come sometime in the future. Set those aside.
Yes.
All right. This is also your card. This is a very interesting card. We could spend a lot of time talking about this. Let's kind of hit the high points because we do need to finish up, and we're like halfway through, maybe a little more than half. But
we're a little more. Yeah.
Neoform, green-blue sorcery is an additional cost to cast the spell. Sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a creature card with converted mana costs equal to 1 plus the sacrifice creature's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. Then shuffle your library. So this is a one-time birthing pod effect with an additional counter.
Which I think is very interesting. We've kind of been back and forth on this card. Birthing Pod was so good in Modern they had to ban it, but it was recurable. Neoform, you can only cast once, from your hand, sorcery speed. Not really quite as exciting. But I think it's worth noting that if you can put some utility creatures in your deck, some ETBs, destroy artifact, destroy enchantment, maybe your traditional Chupacabra style effects, like whatever you have, you can turn your sappy no good creatures or just simple players into better cards with Neoform. Yeah, and I think it's also worth noting, I've seen Vanifar decks with this already in it, because those utility decks are kind of already popping up, but also it could be very playable in Modern. LSV and I can't remember who off the top of my head. LSV and another pro did a top 5 War of the Sparks card for Modern, and this was at like number 3 or something. And they off the bat talked about getting Grizzlebrand on turn 1. So there are ways to break this card in Modern.
How? We're not going to talk about it.
I can explain it if you want. It's short.
We'll talk. Okay, real quick, hit me with it.
Okay, it requires
All right, here
Chancellor. You exile it. You get a green mana. You play a blue thing. You cast that. You put your Allosaurus Rex into play because you can do it with all the green cards, whatever. Then you sack that. Get a Grizzlebrand. Comes in with the 1/1 counter. You start gaining life. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Eric's leaving. He gave us 200 more stars. So Eric, you're the best man. I really appreciate. We're just getting a nickel bolus, so we'll try to get it in real quick. I think somebody wanted to hear. It might have been Eric.
Yeah, it was Eric.
So you might want to stick around for this one. So, Nicol Bolas, Dragon God, blue, black, red, legendary planeswalker Bolas. 4 loyalty counters. Not a great rate. 5 for 4, not great. Nicol Bolas, Dragon God, has all loyalty abilities of all other planeswalkers on the battlefield. Wow. This one's probably not going to be my planeswalker deck. I'm just kidding. No. So here we go. +1, you draw a card. Each opponent exiles a card from their hand or a permanent they control. So that's a 2-card swing, right? You're drawing a card. They're losing either a permanent or a card in their hand. Very solid +1. You could probably do that all day and just be happy with that. -3 to store target creature or planeswalker. Super relevant. We haven't seen that kind of ability since Garruk Apex Predator. And then -8. Well, we had both. It was like 2 separate abilities.
Yeah.
One was a plus and the other one was a minus. And then -8. Each opponent who doesn't control a legendary creature or planeswalker loses the game. It's not an emblem. It's a one-time. Checks the battlefield. You got it or you don't. Of course, you're never going to do it unless you've got it. You know. So, Scott, how good is the static ability that you have all the loyalty abilities of all of your planeswalkers in the battlefield?
I would say, just in the current standard we have right now, being able to copy your opponent's Vivian, or being able to copy your opponent's 3-mana Jace, like, it's already kind of exciting. But it's worth noting that this is the cheapest Nicol Bolas we've ever seen, and it really hasn't gone much that down in power. Like, it is very strong for 5 mana.
Yeah.
I'm impressed by this card.
This card is, it makes me happy. Right? This is what Planeswalkers, this is what I want to do with Planeswalkers.
Yeah.
So I don't really know how viable like a 4 or 5 color Planeswalker deck is. But if any card is going to make it worth it, it's like this plus a Johnny. You know, could you imagine this and a Johnny on the battlefield at the same time, and you do that ability twice, and you trigger each other, like each other of them get the counters?
That would be stupid, and I'd hate you for eternity.
Do keep in mind that is literally all 5 colors across those 2 cards.
Yeah,
though.
Yeah, it really is.
It's not going to be easy.
Not easy at all, but I mean, I think that wrapping, if we can wrap Nicol Bolas up, auto-include in Grixis decks, if you're playing a Planeswalker deck, probably worth your time. This card is just gravy.
Jack just said I had the quote of the night, and I'm kind of curious what quote that he's talking about. So, Jack, if you could let us know what quote is my quote of the night.
And keep in mind, you're talking to a guy who, in Limited, put a Chromanticorn on a Chromanticorn, okay?
I did. So. Listen, it sounds like a fantasy, and if you don't even know what that card is, it's a 5-color
Don't get
creature.
into it. Don't get into it right now.
I gotta get into it. It has Bestow, and Bestow says you can enchant this creature onto another creature, and then but I drafted 2 in a draft. And anyway, okay, no one believes that story.
And you bestowed the Chromanticore on your other Chromanticore.
I did it. I feel like Wizards of the Coast should have come to the shop and just been like, "You win the crown of Limited." Like
you at the very least deserve a hefty Xbox achievement.
Give me. Yeah. How do I put that onto my Planeswalker Point achievement thing? Where is that? How do I check?
You deserve
box?
it. You deserve it.
All right. So we were talking about Nicol Bolas.
Let's move on from Nicol Bolas. Card is
Sounds
insane.
Good. Yes, card is just stupid. All right. On to another stupid card, but for a different reason. Niv Mizzet Reborn. It is a full-on Wooburg. White, blue, black, red, green. For those of you who don't know the lingo. Legendary creature, dragon, avatar, flying, 6/6. Already great. You'd instantly play that. I'm just kidding. That's not really that impressive. You would, for Wooburg, you want a lot more than that. All right. So flying 6/6, and it has this wall of text, and it says, when Niv Mizzet Reborn enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each color pair, choose a card that's exactly those colors from among them. Put the chosen card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Now, I believe when it says color pair, it actually means pair and not like 3 colors or 4 colors. So looking for 2 colors, right?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so it uses the word color pair. So there are 10 color pairs. So theoretically, in Magical Christmas Land, you could draw 10 cards. You're never going to draw 10 cards, but you could. So if you're going to play 5 colors, and you're going to go all in, you're going to play 5 color Planeswalkers. And you play all the different guilds of Planeswalkers, which is silly. Like, you may draw... I don't know. I want to know the numbers here, but I'm thinking, I would want to draw, at least 4 cards.
I mean, and that's assuming that you have no single color cards in your deck, right? Like,
yeah, you can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
So the question is that enough of a enough of a payoff to A, play 5 colors, B, play all 10 guilds, and then C, cast a Wooburg card?
Absolutely not. Don't do it.
And this is where we differ.
Save yourself.
Oh, man. So the quote of the night was, the card makes me happy. This card also makes me happy. Not as happy, but it makes me want to make this deck and see if I can make it ever happen.
This card makes me sad.
I'll just give a handshake to anybody who ever plays this in Standard.
And draws 10 cards?
No, just like ever decides to make a deck with this card.
I'll give you a handshake if you draw 6 cards. I mean, good luck.
If you drew 6 cards, you get more than a handshake.
You probably win the lottery because it's going to be that hard to do.
You'll probably win the game. Maybe not, though. It still might not be enough to win that game. All right, let's go to the next card. We've talked about that long enough. All right, next card is Prison Realm. This is an Oblivion Ring, but for creatures and planeswalkers. So it's 2 and a white enchantment. When Prison Realm enters the battlefield, exile target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until Prison Realm leaves the battlefield. But also, when Prison Realm enters the battlefield, scry 1. There's not much to talk about here, but we do not have a 3-mana prison effect or Oblivion Ring effect.
Yeah, and I think that alone makes this playable.
Yeah. And then it scries 1, which is just the gravy. Right?
Which is gravy. Yeah, Conclave Tribunal and Ixalan's Binding are hard slots to compete with. But I think this can fit in a deck that doesn't want your Conclave Tribunal and wants to be a little faster than Ixalan's Binding.
Yeah. All right, we can talk about the next card, right? I think that's about it.
Yeah, we're good.
But it's probably going to be a standard card for sure. So, Ral's Storm Conduit. 2 blue-red Legendary Planeswalker Ral. The most important line of text on this card is this static ability. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Ral's Storm Conduit deals 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. Comes in with 4 loyalty counters, +2, scry 1, -2. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. The reason why I wanted to bring up this card is because there's a very real combo deck that could come out of this card. So, Expand and Explosion. Expansion Explosion, yeah. Expansion Explosion is a double ability card from Guilds of Ravnica, I believe. And Expansion says it's 2 hybrid red-blue mana, and it says copy target instant or sorcery that costs 4 or less, and then choose a new target, right? For that spell?
Yes.
Okay, it's an instant. Now, here's how the combo works. Does not take a whole lot. You play a really cheap instant or sorcery, like an Opt or a Shock, and then you play expansion number 1, targeting the Opt or the Shock, whichever one you play. And then you hold priority while it's in the stack, you play your second expansion explosion, which is expansion, and you copy the first expansion. So then the second copy of expansion resolves first, and it makes a copy of a spell that costs 4 or less, which then you retarget the first expansion explosion, the first expansion. And then you just keep letting that resolve and target the first expansion. So you keep making a copy of that
You just
spell.
make a chain of spells.
Yeah.
And with Ral's static ability, that just wins you the game.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah, combo deck. Sounds good.
Combo deck. 2-color combo deck. All at instant speed. All at instant speed.
Not bad. Not bad. I do like it. I think that's really cool.
Yep. Anything else you want to talk about? I mean, that's basically all I wanted to talk about for that card.
Yeah. No, we're good.
All right. Next card. Return to Nature. Not much to talk about here. Just a really versatile card.
Yes.
1 green
Solid
instant.
sideboard playable.
Yeah. Choose one, destroy target artifact or target enchantment, or exile target card from a graveyard. So this is, what is that? What's that card called? Naturalize. Thank you. With an extra ability to exile a card from a graveyard, which is relevant sometimes.
Yeah, very relevant. And I kid you not, you can get on MTG Goldfish right now, type in Naturalize, and it will show you modern decks that are playing Naturalize. Mm-hmm. So the fact that Naturalize sees play in Standard, even in Modern, mm-hmm. like having a card that is the exact same with one extra ability, that's just better. Yeah. Just better.
All right. Anything else we want to say about that?
Nope.
Okay. To answer Jack's question, he said, when did they start making Planeswalkers at just rare? They did it originally in Lorwyn before they had Mythic Rare, but then they haven't done it since then, but they're doing it for this set because it is a Planeswalker Matters set. And they're also doing Planeswalkers at Uncommon. So that's crazy. All right,
Jack,
here we go.
Every pack of War of the Spark you're going to open is going to have a Planeswalker in it. So
yes, and that's super exciting.
It's pretty interesting. It'll be fun.
Yeah. All right, next card, Mythic. Rolasek, is that what we said?
Roalesque.
That was not. I didn't even come close. All right, I changed up the order of the letters.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you say?
Rolex.
Yeah. Rolex, the Apex Watch. 2 green blue legendary creature human mutant. 4/5 flying trample. Solid card, but still not something you would just play if that's all it said in Standard. You'd want a little more.
Yeah, and I've kind of been harsh on this card, but I really do think when you're playing the Wild Growth Walker Explorer creatures, you're playing Hadana's Climb, maybe you're playing Evolutionary Sage to proliferate. Like, this card can be just a really solid playable in putting counters on your creatures matters deck.
And that's all because that's because of the other abilities, which say that when it enters the battlefield, you put 2/1/1 counters on another target creature, and then when it dies, you proliferate twice.
Yes.
So yes, all those creatures with 1/1 counters, super relevant for this. This card, I'm still not sure how much we're going to see it in Standard, but it could be.
Probably not much, but I can see it being a role player in a specific deck, so I like it. It's interesting.
All right, next card is Saheeli Sublime Artificer. So, 1 red-blue hybrid, legendary Planeswalker Saheeli. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. That is the most important line of this. It has 5 loyalty. It has a -2 ability that says target artifact you control becomes a copy of another target artifact or creature you control until end of turn, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. What do you think?
I like this card. I don't care about its bottom ability. I think the fact that this is a young Pyromancer style card for 3 mana, I think that will see play in Standard. I think I've already seen Drake's decks that are bringing this in the main board. I think it's cool. In a world where Murmuring Mystic is already seeing some amount of Standard play, this is cheaper. No, it doesn't make tokens with flying, but it does do a very solid young Pyromancer job. I like it. I think it's cool.
Cool. Me too. I think it could play. All right. Here's the next one. Sorin Vengeful Bloodlord. 2 white-black legendary Planeswalker Sorin. As long as it's your turn, creatures and Planeswalkers you control have lifelink. Interesting ability. 4 loyalty. +2. Sorin deals 1 damage to target player or Planeswalker. And then probably the more relevant ability is -X. Return target creature card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature is a vampire in addition to its other types. Every time I know you probably have more to say about this. I think this is your card. But every time I read this, I keep reading it and I keep wanting it to do more.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I'm not even sure this is my card. But I'm not even sure I want to claim it at this point.
Okay, well, we can just go on if you want.
Well, no, I did add it. Soren, right? Yeah, this is my card, and I think really what does it for me more than anything is that this is already giving your creatures lifelink, and I think that's incredibly important against red. But its abilities are also good against other decks, and so I like this in your whatever red-white creature deck, or I'm sorry, black-white creature deck can exist in this standard format. I think it could be a solid player as the top end. So,
Okay.
Not to mention, it gives your Gideon Black Blade lifelink. That's gravy. I'm sold.
Oh, wow.
Sign me up.
That's true. That's actually not bad. All right. Next card. Spark Double. 3 and a blue. Creature illusion. This card's insane. You may have Spark Double enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature or planeswalker control, except it enters with an additional 1/1 counter on it if it's a creature. It enters with an additional loyalty counter on it if it's a planeswalker, and it isn't legendary if that permanent is legendary. Wow. Okay, so
yeah, this card is kind of disgusting.
Get a second Nicol Bolas. Ugh.
Yeah, and more than anything, like we're just worried about the play your Teferi, get a second Teferi with Spark Double world. That sounds like the worst thing I could possibly imagine to play against, and I don't want to play against it. So
I mean, I think those are on the same level, like Nicol Bolas and Teferi.
Yeah, that's fair. It's merely because the Teferi deck is already so oppressive, and we don't have a Nicol Bolas deck. So yeah, but you're right. Yeah, facing down 2 Nicol Bolases, you're gonna have a bad time. If you have 2 Nicol Bolases, you're gonna have a great time.
You're gonna have a wonderful time.
Enjoy.
You're gonna be double happy. All right.
Yes.
All right. Next card. This is my card. I don't know how you feel about this card. Storev, the Dev Corinne Lynch. Sure, why not? 1 black green legendary creature, zombie elf wizard, 5/4 trample. When it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, return to your hand target creature or planeswalker card in your graveyard that wasn't put there this combat. So, really good body with trample that has an ability on damage that is card advantage, but like specific card advantage. I think this card has a really good upside. Now, this card has the same problem that Ilgar or Ilharg has, which is you have to wait a turn before it does the thing that you're playing it for.
Yeah. And, I mean, not to go apples and oranges here, but Ilharg just needs to attack. This needs to attack and deal damage.
Yeah. And I think there's going to be a lot of times where you will because it does have trample.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in 5 power, that's pretty decent.
Yeah. Yes, Ilharg is easier to trigger, for sure. And its trigger ability is better than this. But, this kind of slips right into a deck that already exists, which is like, what is it? Sultai midrange.
Yeah.
You could slip this right in there. Now the only problem, and you can get back your jellyfish. Like.
Touche. I like the way you put that.
I think that's what you want to do. And like we said, that deck kind of has a lot of question marks at the 4-drop slot. What do? You could play this instead of your Hostage Taker. You could play this instead of your Chupacabra. Just whatever the meta is.
Yeah, try it out. See what happens. Could get some value.
Not saying it's going to be a big player, but I think it's something to look at. All right.
Sure. Next
card. Teferi, the Time Raveler. 1 white-blue. Each opponent can cast spells only at any time they could cast a sorcery, and then 4 loyalty +1. Until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. -3, return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand. Draw a card.
Yeah, I think that this card has some very relevant text on here. And I mean, already a mirror breaker for the control deck, already taking so much legs away from your opponent. But more than anything, LSV put this as his number one standard constructed playable card in War of Spark.
Wow.
Yep. Who would have thunk? Gideon Blackblade was lower on the list than Teferi.
I mean, I will say this card can be really annoying.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, if you're trying to play instants and sorceries, this card is not cool.
Yeah. I wonder if LSU's right. I don't know. We'll see.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. All right, next card. We've been teasing this one a lot, so we'll quit the teasing and we'll start doing the Tezzeret. Master of the Bridge for blue-black Legendary Planeswalker Tezzeret. Static ability. Creatures and planeswalker spells you cast have affinity for artifacts. So affinity for artifacts, for those who don't know, mean that you can tap an artifact instead of paying a generic mana for an artifact. Correct?
No, you're thinking of improvise.
I'm thinking of improvise. It costs one less. One
Yes.
generic less for each artifact you control, which is just better.
Yes, artifacts on the battlefield make your artifacts cost less, even to the point where they're free. That is insane.
Yeah, so that's already good. And that's creatures and planeswalkers have affinity for artifacts. So you could play a 6-mana Ugin, which we will get to here in a little bit, for free. Or a 4-mana Karn for free.
Yeah, and that is real gross.
And we haven't even got to any of the activated abilities.
Nope.
+2. This is a +2 ability. Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge, deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of artifacts you control. You gain X life. So you got your guild globes out there. You got your you got your treasure maps.
Yeah, your Fountain of Renewal, your thematic compasses.
And you go +2 Lightning Helix.
I mean, I'm disappointed that you're saying Lightning Helix.
I'm just being conservative. I'm being conservative.
Yeah. I'm hoping that you already have your Bolas's Citadel on the battlefield. You've basically played Storm off the top of your library with Psy Master Thopterist on the battlefield, and so when you plus that puppy, you're like, bam, shoot you for 15. Am I living in magical Christmas land? Maybe. But is the Tezzeret the master of the bridge? He can be the master of my bridge any day.
Amen. All right, here we go. -3. Return target artifact from your graveyard to your hand. That's kind of exciting, but I think I'm probably just going to +2 most of the time.
Yeah, +2. It's good, but let's +2.
Yeah, -8, which you get to on your third turn. Exile the top 10 cards of your library. Put all artifact cards from among them onto the battlefield.
Do you know how easy it is to trigger Bolas's Citadel's Bottom's ability when you're doing that?
Oh my goodness. This is the deck I want to play. That's the deck I want to play. I want to play the artifact deck. Forget the 5-color Planeswalker deck. Let's be honest, I'm still going to make it. But this is the deck that I want to play.
Gideon Blackblade, eat your heart out. Liliana, Death March, whoever you are, we don't care. Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge. Let's do it.
Ugin, Karn.
Oh, yeah.
Karn. Let's make it happen.
I'm down.
All right, next card. The end of this deck. The Elder Spell. Not really, but maybe. Destroy any number of target Planeswalkers. So this is like we've been hyped on Planeswalker. I've been hyped on Planeswalkers all night. Scott's over there like whatever. I've been hyped on Planeswalker all night. And this is the startling wake up from your dream right here. You've been having a great dream. Your alarm goes off at 7:30 in the morning, and the Elder Spell is hovering over you.
Yeah, and welcome to reality.
Yeah, and it says, black sorcery. Destroy any number of target Planeswalkers. Choose a Planeswalker you control. Put 2 loyalty counters on it for each Planeswalker destroyed this way. It's a good card.
What an absolutely insane wall of text for 2 mana. I'm just blown away that this has an upside on top of the fact that you can destroy any number of target planeswalkers.
But
for
Scott,
2 mana.
It has a downside. It's a sorcery.
You got me. And that double black pip is going to be hard.
That's going to be hard in your Bolus deck. Nah.
Yeah, so... Yeah, this card is pretty insane. Any black mid-range deck is going to be at least sideboarding these for the Planeswalker heavy decks.
Oh my gosh.
This card is...
Get your copies now. This card is going to be like at least $5.
And I think it's worth mentioning that the path to power is often paved with atrocities. So...
That's profound, Scott.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's profound. I'm almost upset that we haven't been reading all the good flavor text so far. Almost. I'm not though. Almost. All right, next card is Tulsimir, Friend to Wolves. All right, so for all you Wolves fans out there, this is 2 green, white legendary creature, Elf Scout. So Friend of Wolves, but not a wolf himself. I assume that's a guy. So 3/3, and Tulsimir, Friend to Wolves, enters the battlefield. Create Voja, Friend to Elves, a legendary 3/3 green and white wolf creature token. So I think that's actually Voja there in the background behind Tulsimir.
Very likely.
When a wolf enters the battlefield under your control, gain 3 life. And that creature fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So the hard and fast facts of this card are that it is a 5 mana 3/3 that creates a 3/3 when it enters, and you gain 3 life, and that token fights another creature.
Which is just an insane amount of stuff.
We're talking Thragtusk level of a card here.
Yeah, this is Thragtusk level card. I mean, Thragtusk, easier to cast with the mana pips. You know, being a 5/3 is very notable. And also, it waits a turn to give you the other 3/3 it has to die. But this card is just kind of insane. My one big problem with it is I don't know of a deck in the format that is looking for this card or this effect. Like, all the green-white decks are so token-based and so go wide. I think in those decks you always play Tristani at 5 over Tulsimir. But still, such a cool card. I can see this card being so busted in other standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's just not a ton of wolves out there to really get that synergy going. But there is a planeswalker that makes wolves. We didn't talk about it, but that does exist. It's also an uncommon, so it doesn't have a plus. It just minuses.
Yeah.
That's really the problem with that card. All right. Next card. Tomik. Distinguished Advocist.
Yeah, 2 mana, 2/3 with flying that lands on the battlefield, and land cards in the graveyard can't be the targets of spells or abilities your opponent control. Your opponents can't play land cards from the graveyard. Not a big deal in Standard, but I can just see this being a relevant player in Legacy, Death and Taxes versus lands type of thing. Protect. I mean, you would play this. You could. I can imagine seeing a. What am I trying to say? A Dark Depths, a white Dark Depths deck where you use this to protect your combo while you try to Dark Depths off. So really interesting text, and we've never quite seen a card that says all these things on it. So I think it's worth talking about just for eternal playability, but that's it.
Yeah. Very, very good. Very good insight on that. All right, ready for the next one? All right, we only got 2 left. So here's our second to last card, Ugin the Ineffable. We've mentioned this card quite a bit, and so here it is. 6 generic mana, costs no colors to cast this card.
None.
The static ability says colorless spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. So all your colorless artifacts that you may or may not be playing in this deck, which you probably will be, cost 2 less. So, Guild Globe is free. And if you have, Tezzeret on board, and you have, like, Ugin's Conjurant which we don't have. We're not talking about, but that costs 2 less. It's an X spell, so you get 2 for free, and then if you have Tezzeret out, you get 1 more mana for each artifact you control. Right? Is that correct? Is that how that card works?
I kind of lost you there.
Ugin's Conjurant, right? It's an X spell. It's a creature.
Yes.
So Tezzeret says creatures in Planeswalker's control have affinity for artifacts.
Yes.
So do you get one towards X for each artifact you control?
I would say yes, and then the 2
and then 2. So if you have 5 artifacts,
your Conjurant is already a 7/7.
It's 7. It's a 7/7. You spent no mana.
Yeah. And I'm not sure Conjurant goes in that deck.
I don't know if it does either, but it is. But, I mean, it's a 7/7 for free.
Yeah, but you're explaining what compounding the affinity plus this ability can do for the deck, and I think that's worth noting. Those abilities stacking together are very interesting, and Ugin making your artifacts cost 2 less already. It's just so much gravy. Yeah. I don't love that there are 2 Karns in the deck. Tezzeret, there's a blue-black Tezzeret. There's also a mono-blue Tezzeret that kind of fits in this deck. And now there's Eugene the Ineffable. So it's kind of a lot of Planeswalkers fighting for this deck, but I do like Ugin. Pretty cool abilities.
I think Ugin's the second Planeswalker we play.
Possibly.
But that's just me. And then Old Karn, probably. Anyway, so yeah, we haven't even talked about the active abilities. +1, exile the top card of your library face down and look at it. Create a 2/2 colorless spirit creature token. When this token leaves the battlefield, put the exiled card into your hand. So make a 2/2, and then if it dies or exiled or bounced or whatever, you draw the exiled card. We've never really seen an ability like this.
Yeah, really interesting. But I mean, it's literally card advantage on a stick. Like if the stick dies, you get the card advantage.
Yeah, and that's really great.
Really cool plus ability. I like that.
I would just like plus all day. But also the -3 is a good ability too. Destroy target permanent that's 1 or more colors. That's most permanents. So you cannot kill an Ugin with an Ugin though. It's unfortunate, but you can't.
What if I have Painter's Servant on the battle? Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, all right. Last card. We kind of had mixed thoughts about this one, but we're going to talk about it. It is Vivian, Champion of the Wilds, 2 in a green, Legendary Planeswalker Vivian. Static ability says you may cast creature spells as though they had flash. Okay, interesting static ability. +1, until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gains vigilance or reach. That's not getting anybody out of bed, right? No one's excited about that card.
Don't think so.
But it does have 4 loyalty coming down at 3, which is very solid. -2. This is the exciting part of the card, along with the static ability. So look at the top 3 cards of your library. Exile 1 face down, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. For as long as it remains exiled, you may look at that card, and you may cast it if it's a creature card. Which, if you have Vivian in play still, you can cast it at instant speed. So, it's not necessarily a turn 3 play. We actually were talking about that, and it's probably not best at turn 3. It's probably best later once you have a board developed.
Yeah, and at first we were talking about this in the Stompy deck, and I think we both agreed that the Stompy deck is trying to be a little more aggressive than what this card is doing. But I think that this card and these abilities would kind of push its way into a new creature archetype, a mid-rangey ETB matters. I think this could make for a really tricky modern deck. I mean, the fact that you can get modern standard deck, the fact that you can give Exclusion Mage a Manowar flash just off the top is already so strong. So this card is cool, but not sold on it yet.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a card that, like, I read it and I'm like, that's kind of interesting. I feel like there's stuff you can do, because anytime you're talking about creatures with flash, there's a lot of things that can go on, with ETBs and whatnot. So,
sure.
All right, that is our last card. Thank you for watching the stream. Thank you for joining me and Scott. If you enjoyed this, please tell your friends about it. Share the video, like it, subscribe to the page, follow it, like it, all that. You'll get notifications anytime I go live streaming different games. I do stream Arena, but I also stream other things that aren't Magic related, in case you're into that too. Scott, any last remarks before we go?
Sorry we went a little long. This is our first time doing this, so if Marshall has me back, we'll work on the time in the future. But I just appreciate being allowed to be on the show.
Yeah, well, Scott, I was glad to have you. The time did go a little longer than we expected, but I hope my hope is that this video finds you later. If you didn't watch it live, maybe you'll watch it later. And like right now where we are, it's almost midnight, and I know people go to bed before midnight. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of this. I think we had a lot of fun tonight, and I think we're probably going to do these again in the future. So with that, we'll see you. I'll see you tomorrow night, and y'all have a good night.
Holler at us on Discord.
What up? Discord. Yeah, we got a Discord somewhere. I don't have the link ready. All right, see y'all later.
Yeah.